Good morning, Predicted Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. It is the end of the month, Friday, September 30th. Oh no, don't start freezing on me, Toss. There we go. So, for a quick review, you've had a very fun week. On Monday, we played up to squeeze top and down to squeeze bottom, where we picked up some calls for the gap up, locked those up. We played from squeeze bottom back, or squeeze top back down to bottom. And back to that low of year. The next day, we went long, up through to the squeeze tops. And yesterday, we played short, back down to low of year. Caught a little bit of longs, back to VWAP, shorted back again to that 36.21, and then picked up some calls into close and swung some. Overnight, we've pretty much held our trend line from the lows once, twice, and we're having a teensy gap up on everything. Let's load in our beast tool just for fun. As you can see, overnight, ran into our burger top, our sell zone in the open range, slipped back to our burger bottom, our buy zone in the open range, where they took it up almost to that purple hash line, and now bringing it back to that opening range. Before we talk about where we can go today, let's take a quick look at the economic calendar, as we do have some data coming out here in a few minutes. All right, we've got some PCE data coming out at 8:30, along with some consumer spending and income data. We have some Fed speakers today. We have some PMI and University of Michigan, consumer sentiment and 5-year inflation. And then more Fed speakers. So we'll see how we deal with this data at 8:30. It could bounce us right back up near high overnight. It could break this trend line and start to send us back to that 36.39. Go ahead and take this off so we can focus on key levels for the day. As you can see, we've got our key levels below that have been providing support, making a zone that when we get to it, we bounce off of it. Same thing happened yesterday. So this is our zone of support. We also have that 4-hour squeeze right at that zone, also providing support. Should we start to give out this trend line, we're likely coming back to this zone and squeeze bottom. We do have new low of year at that 36.13. So if we do start to slip down and take out 36.39 at 36.21, next stop is that 36.13, and then the psych level of 3600. Below that, I do have a little zone of support that spans from 35.87 to 35.96. If we actually take all that out, we have our third Keltner down at 35.63 and a key level at 35.41. That is downside thesis, but if PCE data is accepted and has a good reaction, we could continue to hold this trend line, get back above 36.68 to turn it into support, and make our trek right back up like we did on Wednesday. Actually, we're close to opening in the same area. If we can get above that 36.68, turn it into support, looking to get through, pre-market hard. Back to that 37.08, the daily 8 MA, which is at 37.22. And that key level at 37.41, where that first Keltner to the downside sits. At the top of this 4-hour squeeze. If we try to push past that, 37.73, the next key level, and then 3800. But on a month end, we could very easily stay in this range in between these key levels. Basically, we could have an inside day compared to yesterday. We do have a 1-hour squeeze that is pretty much in that range. We've already run into the top of it pre-market. The bottom of it is back down near the lows from yesterday. So that 1-hour squeeze is going to provide a range and let us know. We could fight up to the top of it and reject, but it is nice and thin instead of being thick and mid-compression. And when they're thin like that, they can be easier to push through. Just like we had a 30-minute squeeze that started to form overnight, and they pushed right through it, firing it. Of course, now we're back. But let's see how this PCE reaction goes. We'll get it here in about 20 minutes. We'll still be having prep. But those are the levels to watch on ES today. On NQ. Yesterday I almost made it down to my key level at 11.68 and made it into that 4-hour squeeze, but then bounced. Again, like ES, let's see if this channel that we wrote up overnight can continue to provide support. To the upside, looking to hold this 11,200. Make our way up through pre-market hard in a bid to get back to this 11,450 where the daily 8 sits, and that cycle level around 11,500 where we also have a daily Keltner key level. If we can push through that, up to this 4-hour squeeze top and this 11,677. But if we start to break down and lose this 11,200, that 180 overnight low, then we'll come back to yesterday's lows and maybe fully tap this 11,068. If we start to slip outside of this 4-hour squeeze, next stop, big psych level of 11,000 and 942 just below that. Also have the third Keltner to the downside down near 850-ish. Our daily 21 getting closer and closer to the 677 up at 850. Something to keep an eye on. Could we get there today? What do we got? 330 from here. It might be out of reach. Yeah. Of a normal ATR from where we closed. NQ was definitely weaker yesterday out of the indices on every bounce. It only got to its 3-minute moving averages and then rejected, whereas the other indices got up to their 5-minute moving averages. So NQ a little bit weaker. Something to keep in mind. On to the ready. The Readies has kind of been one of the stronger indices to the upside this week. It did get back to the daily 8 on Wednesday. Obviously back down with everything else. It held that second Keltner yesterday pretty darn well at the lows. And now almost back to the daily 8, which has stepped down a little bit, right? Overall, as long as we stay above this 1656, I've been talking about that all week. We got there Monday, got there Tuesday, held it in the overnight, opened above it, and had a big old pop back above 1700 in this shaded zone. I've created this shaded zone, and I know it's wide, but it does kind of represent some key levels around ready right before the COVID drop and after we recovered and had our September, October of 2020 where we were kind of flagging. Each one of these levels was very important for the ready. And now we're back here. So this is kind of the reset point for the ready, if you will, to where we were right before COVID, right after we recovered from the COVID drop. You know, the market took off and ran up to new highs, and now we're back at this kind of home base for the ready. So as long as we stay above this 1656, looking for things to go long again. Underneath this, we could start to give out back to that 1600-ish, and we'd be slipping back down into COVID numbers, so underneath this zone. But overall for today, let's see if we start to lose this trend line. You know, if that PCE data comes out and we have a negative reaction, likely coming back to retest this overnight low. If that gives out, coming down to test this zone where this daily Keltner sits and this 1656. Should that give out, we have that 4-hour squeeze. And the bottom of this is down near, call it 1615. But if we can hold our uptrend here, and even if we dip and test pre-market low, if we can catch a bounce there, looking for the ready to get up to 1700, to this daily 8, and to the top of this 4-hour squeeze, around 1730. Anything past that, psych level 1750 and the daily 15 and daily 21, sitting just up above on a 50-point ATR. It might be a little bit out of reach. YM. Boy, look at these key levels on YM. On Monday from that 29,630, 640, down through this 29,315, pretty much got down to that 846, about 40 points off. So let's see if we can hold this 315. We did drop below it, and then it kind of acted as resistance yesterday. We got above it just a little bit, but you can see these wicks. Zoom in a little bit, sorry. You can see we'd get there and reject. We got there and rejected. Got there and rejected. So overall, looking for us to get above this 29,315, use it as support to keep trucking higher. Back up to this 29,640, and there we go. 29,640, 29,700, where that daily 8 is sitting. and pass at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. Right, and that big psych level of 30,000. Close near this 315. We could kind of potentially get up there today. It'd be a hair past an ATR, but it could happen. If we have a negative reaction to the data coming out and we start to lose this trend line overnight, first thing coming back to this overnight low, then yesterday's low, then the weekly low, right near this key level at 850 in the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze. Apple. Just been on an ugly downtrend, kind of dragging the market, right? They had a news blip this week that they're going to be making less iPhones. They're ramping down the production numbers. And I think they had an executive that quit yesterday, something like that. But either way, let's see if Apple can stay above yesterday's low. It's starting to get outside of its daily squeeze. It's technically still intact. But if we stay below it today, it will likely fire to the downside. So for the upside, let's see if Apple can get back above this 144.5 in the bottom of this daily squeeze and back up to key levels above. The daily 8 will likely be stepping down into these key levels around that 147.5, 148. But if Apple continues to be weak, we do have some big major key levels down here at this 138 and 138.80. That could be the zone that we are trying to work down to on Apple. So if we start to roll over and lose yesterday's lows and that 140, kind of expecting us to head here to find support. Do have levels below that, but this one's pretty key. AMD got its little butt beat yesterday. Almost made it down to 62. We did have MU earnings. Let's just do a quick check-in over there. So they had a beat on earnings. They didn't have the best guidance, but after a quick wick down, now we're gapping up. So we could see some love into chips today to the upside, with MU being the first to report and having decent results. So let's see if we do get some love in chips today. On AMD, to the downside, if it starts to give out 63.5, likely coming back to yesterday's lows, and that's 62. But if we can hold, looking to get back to that 65 and up to that 67 where we sold off from yesterday. Amazon. 115 has been pretty key for Amazon this week. As I put my cursor here and you look left, on Monday we shot above it and we tried to hold above it. Once we were back below, it was resistance. Same thing yesterday. Once we got below it, it was resistance, resistance, resistance. So, pretty much right at it right now. And that will be kind of a key number today. If we can get above 115, turn it into support, looking for Amazon to get back up to this daily 8, near 117.5, this 118 at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. But if we start to lose 115 and it is still resistance, then we can come back down to this daily Keltner near 113.5, yesterday's low 113, and this week's low down near 112 at the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze. Typically, when the squeezes are big like this, nice thick clouds, it's harder to push through them. And to push through them and get them to fire, we have to interact with it and close near it, and then it will start to open up overnight and whatnot. So the range is set, and we do have a little 1 hour squeeze, top of which is near that 117 where that daily 8 will be stepping down. So let's see what we get on Amazon today. EA just setting new lows. Made it to that third Keltner the downside, which is kind of in our overs. You know, once we get to third Keltner, we're getting a little oversold, and we can start the process to get back to moving averages. Basically looking for BA to hold yesterday's low, this third Keltner, start to work its way back up above 130 in an effort to get to that daily 8, which will be around 132 today. Cat was very interesting yesterday. It really did not go down with the market. It slipped a little, but it held up. And if you look, this column is one of our custom columns that represents the percent of buying. And yesterday, CAT, GS, and JPM stayed above 50% buying, just meaning they weren't really tanking with the market. So if we do see upside today, those three names could kind of be leading a little bit, right? They're having a decent little gap up. Let's see if we can hold trend line from yesterday's lows. And this 165 level. Looking for that to hold. And then target is to get back up to this 168 where the daily 8 sits at the top of this squeeze. 4-hour squeeze. And yeah, our daily 21 is going to be kind of near 175 on CAT. If we start to give out that 165, 164, we could head back down to this week's lows near 162, 160 at the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze. Google. You know, XLC has not been getting a ton of love. And Google did have a decent run with the market on Wednesday, bouncing off of that 97. Now that we're back above it, let's see if 97 can hold. Looking for Google to get back up to 100 through this daily 8 and to the top of this 4-hour squeeze. If it gives out 97, then we're back to this week's lows, this 4-hour squeeze bottom. On to GS. You know, had a little slip. When the market went back to lows, GS did not, set a higher low and stayed in its wedge. Let's see if it can hold 295. Start the journey back up to 300 and through this week's high to get to about that 305 where the daily 8 sits. It'll be stepping down slightly, probably closer to 304. If 295 gives out, back to 290, 288. JPM. If we can get going to the upside, if we can hold 106 and keep trucking, looking to get up to that 109 where the daily 8 sits at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. That's how we have the daily 21 at 112. If we start to lose 106, coming back to 105, 104. Meta. You know, like, well, actually I would say compared to Google, it did not drop so hard. Yesterday, Google went back near this week's lows. Meta. Oop, clicked the wrong one there. Yeah. Meta held up. So if we do see some rotation into XLC today, Meta could get a little more love than Google. Looking for it to hold this 135 at the bottom of this hourly squeeze, I assume, 30-minute. Yeah, 30-minute squeeze. Our watch list columns that are part of our tool belt include all of the time frame squeezes that you want to set. So we got a 30-minute squeeze at that 135. Let's see if that can provide support. We're going to get back through 138, back to 140 where that daily 8 sits, and 142 at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. If we start to lose that 135, then we're likely coming back to 132 at the bottom of that 4-hour squeeze and near this week's lows. Microsoft. Microsoft was very strong on Wednesday. Having a decent gap up. 240, 241. Kind of been the resistance all week long. So, looks like we're going to be opening near that. Want to keep an eye on that. We could have a rejection and come back to retest. Kind of where we close near 238. But if we can get going through 240, 241, looking to push up to, and we have the daily 8 near that 248, 241 as well. If we can get through that, looking to push up to that 242. And 244, where the daily 15 should be stepping down near today at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. If we start to lose 238, we're going to retest pre-market low. Through that, back to 236 and yesterday's low around 235, 234.5. And below that, if the market is just tanking, this 232.86 big key level that we tapped pre-market on Wednesday in the bottom of that 4-hour squeeze. Netflix. Such a strong name. Talked about this one coming into this week to watch this trend line, and when we start to break through it, we could have a big old push. We got that on Wednesday with the market moving up. And yesterday with the market moving down, Netflix really tried to stay up. From half the day, it was above 240. And then when the market took its second dip back to low, Netflix finally gave out and almost got to that daily 8, but bounced right back up to 240. About to be opening at it. If we can hold 240, looking for Netflix to push up through the last 2 days' highs around 245 in a bid to get to that 250 at the top of this daily and 2-day squeeze. But if we start to lose 240, likely coming back to retest yesterday's lows at the bottom of this 1-hour squeeze. And the daily 8, 15, 21, and 50 are all stacked together from 231 to 235. So we've got our daily MAs, which could be thought of as big liquidity levels, below as support if the market does start to slip and if Netflix slips down. NVIDIA. Again, like AMD. Let's see if we are going to see some love in chips today. Not looking like it right now. Ooh, 8:30 just happened. That data's coming out. Data's coming out and slipping back down. Giving out trend line from overnight. But just slipping in that 36.39 right now. So let's see if that holds. And in our server, sorry, that's what I'm trying to pull up real quick. We have a stock news channel where we follow a few names on Twitter and they drop stuff in, or they, we follow a few names on Twitter that love to cover the news, and normally that data will drop in. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but if you're in our Discord server, which you should hopefully all be, If not, you can join our Discord server for free, and there's a link in the description of this video. But in our stock news channel, we follow a few folks that will drop that data when it becomes available. But not seeing it just yet. So, for NVIDIA, let's see if it can continue to hold 120, this 4-hour squeeze, this week's low, and try to work its way back up to the daily 8 and squeeze top. But if we keep slipping and start to give out 120, 119.5, next up 118, 116, where that third Keltner to the downside sits. QQQ. Oh, look at that, right back up. Ah, now the data's dropping. There we go. So a little bit better on income and spending than expected. And not quite so bad on the core price index, so we might not have a negative reaction. We'll see. We did slip, we pop right back up. You know, a negative reaction would have been tanking to yesterday's low, right? On QQQ. Let's see if we can hold 270, 271. Looks like we're going to be opening near there. If we start to slip, coming back to yesterday's lows, 268, the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze. And that third Keltner to the downside near 266. If we can hold 270, start to work our way back through. We're going to get to 275, and then up to about 280, where that daily 8 sits at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. Snow is very interesting. If the market can hold here and we start to make a rally back, Snow is a very interesting, and it's high on my list of something to watch. I'd have to go back further in time, but it had a big gap up on earnings, and with the market going down, as it has been the last few weeks, Snow has basically just been filling that earnings gap and making it back to the daily 50 and holding, and getting tighter in a wedge. So if market can start to bounce in October and start another drive up, definitely going to be keeping an eye on Snow to get back to 200. But let's move on. SPX. From yesterday, we do have a gap above. To keep an eye on. We made it below that 36.45, and it was resistance yesterday, and almost made it down to that psych level of 3600. Past that, I have that 3587. Yeah, not really gapping down. So we're going to be opening near the same spot. Let's see if 3620 can provide support. 3625 on SPX. Looking to get back up to this Keltner that is probably going to be around 3675. We have that gap around 3700 and the daily 8 just beyond that gap. We also have another gap that we rejected. Well, we thought up to it on Wednesday and started to reject. And if we roll over, psych level 3600, 3587, and then, psych level 3550, and then this is the next couple of key levels I have. SPY. Key level's been working great all week. Let's see if we can hold above this 362. Some pre-market lows where we just bounce. we can find support there. First up, looking to get up to that 365. And then past that, back up to where we sold off from yesterday at 368 and 370, where the daily 8 should now be stepping down. We also have a gap on SPY that has not been filled. That spans from that 370 to 374-ish. We did get kind of to the middle of it on Wednesday. Could mark that mid-level. It's about 372 and a half. But that's upside targets, downside targets. You know, back to 360, 358, 357 and a half at the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze where that third Keltner to the downside sits if we do roll over. And Tesla. We have hit Tesla long this week a number of times and then short yesterday, which was very profitable. Tesla has AI day today, so I'm not really expecting it to do too much until that information starts to roll out. But let's see if it can hold this week's lows, the bottom of this 2-day squeeze that it's at. We have the second Keltner to the downside inside that squeeze at about 262 and a half. If that gives out, 260 is the next stop. And we have that psych level of 250 down near the third Keltner, where she could be headed. But if we can hold and start to work our way back up, get above 270, 275, looking for it to get back to 280, where that daily 8 will be sitting. And you know, we're settling at the bottom of a big 2-day squeeze. We started a nice drive off of it. They took profit and brought it back. They could be setting up for another good drive off of it going into October. UVXY. Did fight up yesterday, but you know, it struggled at 13 bucks and at the top of this 2-hour, 4-hour squeeze. If we are going to see downside of the market today, we will likely see UVXY work its way from 12.5 back up to 13 in the top of the squeeze, maybe pushing to yesterday's highs and this week's highs around 13.5. But if we're going to see some decent upside in the market today, looking for UVXY to stay under 12.75, get back below $12, and back to the bottom of the squeeze, and that daily 8 near 11.8, 11.5. On to VIX. For VIX today, yesterday it struggled around that 33. If we're going to see downside in the market today, VIX will likely hold this uptrend, stay above 31, get through 32, and work its way back to 33, 33.5, big key level. That's if we're going to see downside in the market today. But if we can see some upside and start to take off, looking for VIX to stay under 32, get back below 31, and work its way to 30.5, where that daily 8 sits, and big psych level of 30 at the bottom of that 2-hour squeeze, and that 4-hour squeeze sitting right at our 29.2, 28.8, flanking 29. So let's see if VIX can stay in this downtrend. Give me that. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, for upside of the market, looking for VIX to stay under this trend line and 32 and roll back over for another H and get down to 30, this week's lows. That's it for prep. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. Overall, I would not call that a negative reaction. Quick slip and right back up. Let's watch these key levels. We can get above 36.68 early and turn it into support, looking pretty good to the upside. But if we resist it, and roll back over, likely going to that 36.39 first, right? But I hope this was helpful for everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I did see a few questions in our Discord, so let me go over there real quick. Okay, I don't think any of those questions pertain to prep, so I'll just answer those over there. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new to Predicted Trades, come check us out. You can join our Discord server for free. Every Thursday, you can test out our tools. You get a free copy to try out. You can load our tools on your options charts. If you guys have not seen that, let's just pull up. I'm trying to think of what we hit yesterday. SPY. Whoop. 22,930. The puts. I think we hit the 360s. Come on. Yesterday. Sorry. Let me strip this and put on our beast tool. Come on, Toss. There we go. So what you're looking at is our beast tool, which plots buy zones and sell zones on your options chart. Yesterday we took those puts at open because on the previous day they pretty much made it to our big major buy zone and got a gap up in their favor. So we got those at open, took them up to our purple line, picked them back up when they got near open, took them up to our purple line. I think some of us were swinging the 365 call. Because it arrived at our big major buy zone yesterday, late in the day. Picked those up around $1.30. They got up to $2 by close. And, you know, they're going to potentially be gapping up around 250-ish, right? Ugh, get that out of here. So, if you're new to Predicted Trades and you haven't heard of us, we plot these amazing levels in our tool on your options charts where you know, so that you know where to risk. These levels can be thought of like market maker levels, where they are moving stocks around. Right? If we look at SPY yesterday, pre-market, it started to reject our sell zone. It slipped down, bounced at our buy zone, but then it opened, it took out the buy zone. That was the confirmation we needed to go short down to our outer shaded region. It made it right to that midline in the outer shaded region, set a low slightly below that, but held that midline and then took off from it. So, good luck today, everybody. Definitely come join our server. We'll see everybody in chat. And remember, no beast, no feast.